Welcome to Delta Waterfowl Duck and Goose Hunting 101. This one is about six of a total of 10 webinars this year. There's going to be one more after this. That's bear on next Tuesday. And that is a pilot, first time ever bear. Hopefully you can join us for that too. It is on Go Outdoors, so feel free to register and welcome again. Tonight's panelist, we have Aidan Flores, the R3 program coordinator for Delta Waterfowl. He's the primary hunting presenter and from Texas, by the way. And one of the things great about webinars is he didn't have to travel. We have Sydney Brown, my supervisor. Of course, she's probably going to say that herself, but I had to say it as well. She's our development and evaluation supervisor. She's going to talk about the future of Learn to Hunt, and you'll see why. And then, of course, you have moi, Deep James, hunter engagement coordinator. And I don't know why I threw all of that NC Wildlife Resource Commission. Both Sydney or I are from. I'll have to pull that out. My primary job tonight is MC and question and answer narrator. So as it indicates, the webinar length is 1 hour. We try to stay within that time to respect your time, and no doubt we will tonight. The recording has to be pulled from the cloud. So in other words, the link you're using tonight is not the recording. It gets pulled from the cloud, distributed hopefully within 2 weeks, and it is processed by somebody else other than me. So it takes some time because they already have their own duties. Question and answer session is 30 minutes long. Questions in writing only, topic specific, addressed at Q&A. And you can see we don't have any talking heads. We want you to focus on the content rather than my face. And by the way, I have a face for radio, so you probably won't want to see it anyway. Chat hand raising is not monitored. Please allow us to cover material before writing the questions. A lot of times folks will start writing questions and things that we've already covered in the webinar. And please do complete our post-webinar survey. You will receive that when the recording is available, so I won't send you 2 emails. I'll send you one with both the recording as soon as it's available to me, and then you'll get the webinar survey. And we like you to complete that because it gives us feedback for future events. We try to get better. As I always say, you see that picture of the Regs Digest? That is the new digest and our website. So it's not only a new digest, but we've also recently had a facelift. Instead of .gov, instead of .org, it is .gov. So you know that for the future. And I think that's going to be changing in March or around that time. So thanks again for joining us tonight. Sydney, take it away.
All right. So I'm sure many of you have gotten emails from Deep James, who was just speaking to you. He will be retiring after many, many years of public service with the state of North Carolina come December 31st. So just as an FYI to everybody that is attending, if you are interested in Learn to Hunt or any of the 8-hour-long in-person workshops or the webinars for the future, we do tend to have turkey-related seminars come the spring. So just be aware that we may have a little bit of a gap in programming as we look to fill his position, as well as when we get other staff up to speed with that. But we will continue to offer the program. You will see topics that you have seen before, including upland game birds, turkey, bear, and deer. But just if you would like the most up-to-date information, just keep an eye out on Go Outdoors North Carolina, as well as that website that Deet just mentioned, ncwildlife.gov. He will be very much missed, and we will have a big hole to replace when he does leave us. So, but just know that we will continue. And that is it for me, Deet.
Thank you, Sydney, as always. Sydney's a pleasure to work with, always has been. She was a colleague, now she's my supervisor. And yeah, it's a great relationship. Sometimes you get lucky. As I always say, biology is always a prerequisite to hunting, or as legendary Ray Eye, turkey hunter from Missouri, indicated relative to turkeys. He said, the turkeys will teach you how to hunt them. So biology is the same way. Once you know species better, it makes you a better hunter. And I will say, don't stop at the webinar with any of the information you're going to get, because one of the things that you have today that I did not is called the WWW. I add magazines, VHS tapes, DVDs later on that come out, but now there is so much information out there. And all you need to do is be careful, because usually somebody's trying to sell you something, but a lot of good information. This is a presentation that was developed by a former employee, Doug Howell, and I was very grateful for it. And it's relatively quick, but lots of good pictures, and hope you enjoy it. So I'll give you an introduction before we get to the hunting part. So waterfowl in NC includes all those you're looking at, and that's pretty much ducks, mergansers, and coots, geese, and swans. So a collective of many of them. And of course, if you're on the coast, even many more species in the West, but there's waterfowl hunting everywhere. The first is the dabblers. And if you look at that picture in the upper left, that's what they do. They tip up and they dabble, feeding on seeds, roots, tubers, and fruits of aquatic plants. They tip up, as it shows there, to get the vegetation. They don't go deep. They don't need to. They do it in shallow waters. And includes all those species that you can see there. Obviously, don't really have to read them all. Mallards, black ducks, teal, widgeon, gadwall, shovelers, pintails, and wood ducks. Then we have the divers that don't only tip up, but they tend to be in the deeper water, deeper than the dabblers. Aquatic invertebrates and small crustaceans. So they're not the plant feeders like the dabblers. Up to 6 to 10 feet to reach their food, and includes the ringneck ducks, canvas bats, redhead scaup, and the merganser species. Then we have the ones for the open waters, small and large crustacean, clams, and mollusks in the Atlantic Ocean and the Sounds. So the big waters where people will typically also hunt in boats, although pretty much when it's for duck hunting, you're going to have to deal with water. And that includes the scooters or scoters. I'm not a waterfowl hunter, so I apologize if I mispronounce. Eiders and long-tailed ducks. So if you're thinking in terms of resident and migrant goose, we have the resident population zone, and you can see even at the bottom in the text, it's the blue, so it's pretty much everywhere. Well, they're the birds that don't migrate, that mess on your lawn, that come to be a nuisance. And so often their seasons are much more liberal, and including the bag limit, so you can harvest more of them because they've become that nuisance species. But then there is the Atlantic population in that corner there in the yellow of Canada geese. They're coming from northern Quebec. And so it makes sense that for a species, it's maybe relatively smaller there, that the bag limits are going to end season are more restrictive. So where does waterfowl come from? Well, most, as it says, from the Atlantic Flyway, and you can see how it's driven. They come all the way from Canada. And notables of the ducks, wood ducks, green-winged teal, red ringneck ducks, mallards, black ducks, pintails, and then the Arctic nesting species, greater snow geese, Atlantic Canada geese, Atlantic brant, and tundra swans. And by the way, I did harvest 2 tundra swans when I first came to North Carolina, because my college advisor was a swan hunter, and I actually had taken 2 tundra swans. But waterfowl, to me, turkey hunting is a big thing, so not really a waterfowl hunter. But those people that waterfowl hunt are very passionate about it. So where else do they come from? Well, we already talked about the Atlantic Flyway, but then there's the Mississippi Flyway, the Central Flyway, and the Pacific Flyway. And they're coming from the northern Great Plains prairie pothole region. So there's 2 major locations, and you can see what pretty much covers all of the US. And the notables for the prairie pothole is the canvasback, redhead, scaup, gadwalls, and shovelers. And the big thing about ducks, as compared to many other species, is you do want to become good at IDing them. There are, and I think it's still made by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. It's called Duck ID, or there's another name for it. I had a few of them the other day because I have a workshop coming up. But you definitely want to know the species before you go hunting, including flight patterns. So I suggest you kind of Google that stuff up, which I'm sure there's a ton of information out, so that you don't inadvertently shoot a waterfowl that is not in season. Tip, 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 hint, hint, hint. So how do they know? Well, by the same way that deer come into rut and turkeys come into breeding, by the photoperiod. The day length triggers hormonal responses in the brain. And that's when they know it's time. And so you can see there by the arrow, the onset of the fall migration is typically, right before October. And then the onset of the spring migration is typically close to April. And that is totally the change in day length. The ducks that arrive in NC prior to Thanksgiving are referred to calendar ducks. That's a name they're often referred to. And some only migrate as far south as the weather dictates. So for example, if we're getting ready down here for duck season and it's warm in the north, that's not a good thing, because as long as waterfowl have open water, that means they can feed, whether dabble, dive, or whatever. But if it ices up, that's when they come further south. So typically, and again, not a waterfowl hunter, hunters in North Carolina want it to freeze up so that the ducks will come down. So keep that in mind too. If you're not seeing a lot of waterfowl, maybe it's warmer up north. So if you're hunting waterfowl in in Western North Carolina, you're going to primarily focus on the wood ducks and the Canada geese. And unlike the open water or the sounds and the big, huge lakes in the east, you're going to be focusing on small wetlands, ponds, streams, rivers, and pastures. But there's still waterfowl opportunity out there. And in fact, just as someone that comes from Pennsylvania, a lot of goose hunters up in PA and duck hunters as well. But in the area where I live, they relied on the rivers. And with me, it was the Susquehanna River. So that was popular for goose hunting. So waterfowl in central North Carolina, taking a snapshot, is probably going to look like this. In the ponds, beaver ponds, maybe bigger lakes, even in the woodlands, the bottomland hardwoods, you're going to see that. And obviously, if it's in the coastal North Carolina, you're going to be in some big water. And that box looks pretty interesting, where that person in the upper left is sitting in amongst those decoys. And I'm sure when the wind is blowing, it can be a little chilly in there, especially in the open sound or on the coast. With that, some brief laws and regs mentioned. We don't have an officer with us tonight. We had one here the other night that usually talks about most common violations and stuff, but our officers have been very busy. So what I'm going to give you is a little bit of guide on where you can find things. And what I always say at the workshops is let your fingers do the walking first. Years ago, I didn't let my fingers do the walking first because I couldn't do anything with my fingers other than look at just a gazetteer. And many of you probably have never even heard that, or a road map. And you probably never heard that already, unless you got gray hair like me. But nowadays, you can do all your homework online, and especially on NC Wildlife resources, to look at the maps, to look at the game lands areas, and to pick out your stuff. So just a little bit about that. So migratory bird season regulations, obviously there's a load of stuff in the Regs Digest that you're seeing again, and also where that arrow goes to hunting. It'll take you to like waterfowl in North Carolina, how seasons are set, license requirements, non-toxic shot, because absolutely non-toxic is the only thing legal for waterfowl, and that is a federal law. So, or you can go to Wildlife and Habitat and pick up each species, where if you were to click there on American Widgeon on that link, you'd get a lot of information about that species. And again, you want to study this and look at the pictures. And although I don't think we have any of the flight patterns on our website, I'm sure Aiden can probably direct you, especially since he works for Delta Waterfowl. And yeah, feel free, Aiden, to mention some of that stuff. So if I don't have a copy of the Regs Digest, and I always do, no matter what state I hunt in, and I typically hunt 3 to 4 states a year, and maybe in R4, maybe I'll go for 6 or maybe 8. We'll see, depending on that greater person above. But I like the flipping book. It's great. You can print screenshots and flip through the pages and check it out and just click out what you want. Well, if you scroll down where that Regs Digest is, there you see it, 2025 migratory game bird hunting seasons. And just pulling up an example, there are some PDFs in there of all the different seasons. So one of the reasons I'm not giving dates tonight, that is your due diligence, is because unlike turkey or deer or squirrel, where the seasons are pretty much set statewide, there's a lot of different species and it tends to have different seasons. So I'll finally say that, fingers first, then boots or waders on the ground. And what we use for this Regs Digest especially is the like college professor approach, where you go in as a student, you'll hear some things right up front, and then you've got to go home and do your homework. and you got plenty of time left. Well, obviously some seasons have started already, but I'm seeing some webless migratory. But yes, you got to do your homework, folks. So with that, without further ado, Aiden, it belongs to you, my friend. Okay, let's get you back up here.
All right. Well, thank you, thank you to both Deet and Sydney for having me for the second second presentation over the last 2 years. So today I am going to talk about Delta waterfowl and the and a basic overview of duck and goose hunting, uh, as it spans across North America, not specifically to North Carolina, but North Carolina does have all of the things that we are going to talk about this evening. So I have been with Delta Waterfowl now for going on 4 years. And I am our R3 coordinator for what I like to call the South Central U.S., meaning that I cover Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, Oklahoma, New Mexico, and Arizona. And we now have there are now several other counterparts of mine across the Atlantic Flyway. So just a brief history lesson for Delta Waterfowl. We are a waterfowl conservation organization that has been around since 1911, primarily rooted in the science background to conserve waterfowl and wetlands, and Delta's goal is to secure the future of waterfowl hunting, and we are coined as the Duck Hunters Organization. We want, I guess a little selfishly, we want to produce more ducks so that way we have more ducks over mine and your decoys come duck season. So going forward here, so why waterfowl hunting and why it is important? One of the major things with waterfowl compared to other species is that it is readily accessible across North America, excluding Hawaii. They do have a Nene goose, but they have no huntable waterfowl, and there is a variety of species, just as Deep mentioned. There are puddle ducks, diving ducks, sea ducks, mergansers, coots, rails, snipe. That there's a huge number of species that you can harvest, and it is also a very social form of hunting, compared to being cold alone in a deer blind. Waterfowl hunting is a very social sport, very interactive, and there is a lot of camaraderie and mentorship that goes along with that. And while other species do have different means of take and harvest, duck hunting has totally different styles depending on the flyway that you're in, state, area, coastal, inland. There are dozens and dozens of different techniques and ways to hunt waterfowl, ducks, geese, and the other species. And so one thing that really draws duck hunters to duck hunting, it is that regardless if they are in North Carolina, they can travel to South Carolina, Georgia, Texas, New York, California, Utah. You can go and harvest waterfowl fairly easily in most states, and we will also break that down into the private versus public land hunting. For example, here in Texas, we are 98% privately owned, and so a lot of my duck hunting, I'm fortunate to be on the coastal side. So I have a lot of public water hunting, but depending on your area and state, both private and public hunting lands are an option for you. And so for the brief history lesson, and I won't get too in depth. Here in the U.S., we have what is called the Pittman-Robertson Act, and what that is it is an excise tax on guns, ammo, hunting equipment, that is directly put towards wildlife conservation. And to date, this number is a little outdated, but I believe we are getting close or over the $30 billion generated by the Pittman-Robertson Act since 1937. And a cool little note is back in 2022, the PR Act generated 1.2 billion. And so it is important when we're talking about wildlife conservation and the hunter's role, is that hunters fund a very significant portion of money that goes to not just waterfowl conservation, but all of wildlife conservation. Hunters are the original conservationists. And so one of the other pieces of legislation or a requirement to hunt ducks is that everybody needs a federal duck stamp. And the great thing with this stamp is that 98 cents of every dollar goes directly towards habitat acquisition and conservation. And since the initiation of the duck stamp back in 1934, over 6 million acres of primarily wetland nesting habitat has been conserved. And so 70% of all of North America's waterfowl comes from the prairie pothole region, and this is a region that was primarily small pond wetlands, and due to the increase in ag and farming, these wetlands have been drained, and so through the federal duck stamp and other incentive programs, we are able to acquire these wetlands. And even where we do not acquire these wetlands, we are able to incentivize landowners to leave water on them when they do have water. And so this helps us to maximize duck production when the habitat quality is in a favorable condition. and so before going out into the field and while in a blind or the woods or the river or the boat, safety should always be one of your number one priorities. And so that starts with safe weapons handling, which which includes always keeping the muzzle of your gun pointed in a safe direction, and always keeping your finger out and off of the trigger until you are ready to shoot. When you're with multiple people, you should also establish zones of fire, so that way you are not ringing your buddy's ear, or worse, somebody accidentally gets shot. That doesn't happen very often, but happening even one time, even if it happens one time, that is too many times, because it is very easy to avoid. And so when you are in the field, also be very aware of your surroundings, because more than likely you were not the only one there. There could be other people, could be other animals, could be non-game animals. You may be crossing from public land to private lands, stuff like that. So always be aware of your surroundings. And one of the unique things with waterfowl hunting compared to deer hunting or upland hunting is in a large majority of scenarios, you are going to be in and around water. And through a lot of those, you will be spending part of your time in a boat. Now, mind you, this is typically November through January. So wind is blowing cold, air temperature the air temperature is also cold. Water is freezing, and it doesn't take very long to go into a hypothermic state. And so always wear a life jacket, particularly if you are wearing waders. Safety is the number one priority when you are going out on the water during wintertime. So before you go, also create a hunt plan. Make sure somebody knows where you are going, what time you're expecting to be back. So if something goes wrong, people can be sent to you. And always be prepared. Dress for the elements, bring snacks. Extra clothes are not a bad thing. So, so briefly, we will go over the different types of hunter etiquette as it pertains to public and private land. Here, a little bit later, we will go more into public and private land hunting. But I would say one of the things that drives new hunters and even experienced duck hunters out of duck hunting is the lack of etiquette, particularly on public land, because most people hunt on public land. So if you are one of those folks going out, don't get angry if someone fairly beats you to a hunting location. Wake up early, do your due diligence, but know that you're not the only one trying to find those best spots. And while you are out hunting, don't shortstop birds. And so what that means is, if there are birds working down a shoreline and set up, 300 yards from you is another group, and if you shoot as those birds are going into another group, just to shoot, not that it was a feasible shot, but the act of shooting scares birds away from that spot. you are having a negative influence on someone else's chance to harvest birds. And one of the biggest complaints is that people sky bust. What that means is the morning is going slow, afternoon hunt is going slow, and as birds are working, they're seeing birds, but they're taking 60, 70, 80-yard shots just to shoot. The only thing that is doing it is every once in a while crippling birds, uh educating birds, and it could ruin those birds that might have gone to somebody else a half mile away, 1 mile down the river. So when you're out, be mindful of taking safe, legal, and ethical shots. And to go back to the first point, don't mess up someone's hunt because you are late to a hunt. Find a location within a respectable distance of another hunting group so that way everybody can have a great outing. And one of the neat things within the waterfowl and wetland community is that it is a very small group of people. There are less than a million duck hunters, less than a million duck hunters in the U.S. And so if you see somebody who needs help, always try to lend a helping hand, because you might be the only help that they come across. We're going to transition now over to private lands. Always have permission. Do not trespass into a field or pond just because you saw ducks, thinking that you can get away with a quick pond hunt or roost shoot. And when you have permission, respect the landowner's property. Most private lands that they are going to be multi-use, meaning that they probably have ag, cows, some other use on those lands. And so always leave the place cleaner than you found it. And also adhere to the landowner's specific rules or requests. Some may ask not to hunt a particular portion of their property or a field. Just be mindful, because a happy landowner turns into continued access in a world where private land is becoming harder and harder to come by unless you pay a lease fee or a guide fee. So some of the basic gear that you will need and that I recommend everybody having in their blind bag is of course a shotgun, whether it's a 410, 20 gauge, 12 gauge, or if you like to have a cannon, then they make a 10 gauge, but that gun kicks just a little bit too much for me. You also need ammo, but that does not have to be just steel ammo. It is required to be a non-toxic shot, and so other popular shot is going to be tungsten and bismuth. Of those three options, steel is the cheapest. Decoys, calls, waders, jackets, dress and layers. When you're going out, think about what kind of hide that there is, so that way you can take or build the right blind, set up your boat correctly, and in your blind bag, some of the popular things to carry with you are going to be a headlamp, a knife, hand warmers, extra battery chargers for your phone, stuff like that. Small things that will make your life easier and will make your uh, hunt duration more comfortable. And so the waterfowl hunting can be very intimidating to get into because the regulations are vary from flyway to flyway, state to state. That there is not one place that is exactly the same as the other. And so before going out hunting, always check with your state, with your county, so that way you know when season starts and what areas may be opened or closed during that season. And so what when it gets time to planning to go hunting, one of the barriers for particularly new hunters is finding places to hunt. And so you do have your private lands, which are primarily going to be your guides, your outfitters, your hunting clubs, leased land. I have learned that the further north that you go, that there is a little more knock on the door and ask Farmer Bob if it is okay without getting the boot. So if you do have private land that has birds on it, the worst thing someone can do is to tell you no. So don't be afraid to ask for permission. Second is going to be public lands, which are going to be your state and federally owned lands. Mind you, these all have different restrictions as well. So when you are going into different WMA areas, make sure that you know all of the regulations, including if there is a shell limit, a stopping time, horsepower restriction on your motors. Just read each WMA's booklet on waterfowl hunting before you go. And so once you have a general idea of where you would like to go, or even before, scouting is a huge tool and requires quite a bit of time if you would like to be successful on your hunts. And so preseason, looking at GPS maps, and knowing what birds need: food, water, shelter, and space can greatly help you decide where to hunt during the season, and can increase your daily success. And when you are in season hunting, watching where birds move, their patterns, certain times of day, pressured areas compared to less pressured areas. Visually watching what birds do will help you decide the best places to hunt. And so going back to the other side of regulations, aside from state differences, flyway differences, regional differences within your state, that regulations can be very complex. always make sure to get the right license that you need for your state. Know the bag limits, because the daily bag limit for ducks as an example is going to be 6 ducks, but there's dozens of species that all have their own individual limit, and so it is an aggregate 6 duck limit. But some ducks you can only have 1, some ducks you can have 2, 3, 4, or all 6. And so that this is where your species identification becomes critical, because if you, for example, down in Texas, model ducks during the first 2 weeks of, well, they're actually closed during the first week of season. So there's another regulation, but model ducks tend to come in very early while it's almost still dark, and so people will shoot, but you can only have 1. And so after shooting that 1 model duck, you have to be very careful not to shoot a second model duck, but you can still have 5 other birds. So before you go hunting, it is important to be able to identify what you are shooting at, whether that is watching YouTube videos, looking at guides, going birding preseason, listening to calls, watching flight patterns, silhouettes, bill shape. All of that can help you identify waterfowl better. So one of the things that I touched on earlier was that there are dozens and dozens of different ways to hunt waterfowl. There is hunting over water, hunting in a field, pass shooting birds, jump shooting birds, hunting in timber in a curtain box, which is native to the South Carolina and North Carolina area, and was the box picture that Deet showed earlier. So regionally, find something that works for you, that will help you fool the birds to come hovering over your decoys. And going into the actual waterfowl hunt, many of you probably see all of the different calling competitions and YouTube videos, and everybody is just blaring on a mallard call, right? Well, in reality, that's not always the case. Birds generally aren't that noisy. Mallards can definitely be, but the best thing is to listen and learn the natural sounds that undisturbed birds make, because you want to mimic those birds, so that way they will come feet down over your decoys. And most of the time, those are going to be your softer whistles, softer quacks. All of these can be learned by watching YouTube videos, going to the All About Birds Audubon app, listening to calls, and if you're ever wondering what to do, less calling is typically more. You can very easily spook birds, whereas if you just let them naturally work, oftentimes they will present a good shot opportunity. And so one call that I would recommend every waterfowl hunter to have is a whistle. Most companies, Duck Commander, Buck Gardner sells a 7 in one or a 8-in-1 little $10 cup whistle, but you can make multiple species sound off of it. It is easy to learn, easy to blow, and much less intimidating than a than a mallard hail call or a feeding chuckle. But practice makes perfect, and so before you get into the aggressive calling, make sure that you are trying to mimic natural waterfowl calls, not the competition style calls. And so in order to harvest waterfowl, they of course have to be coming in over the decoys close enough to have a good ethical, safe shot. And so several things to take into account are going to be the wind direction, the sun, decoys compared to your hide, and also the visibility of your decoys. So starting with wind, this is the least, well, in my opinion, this is the least important factor that you should take into account. But generally, birds do like to approach and land into the wind. So that means that you generally want the wind blowing at your back. Now, the most important factor for me, it is going to be where the sun is. Use shadows to your advantage, and I would much rather have the sun at my back, so that way we are in the shadows, versus the sun right in front of me, and then our faces, decoys, blinds, everything looks shiny. So the sun at your back and wind in your face is an example of how I would prefer to hunt, instead of the wind at my back and the sun in my face. But it is, but again, it is very situational to your own hunt. Now, when it comes to setting up decoys, that there is no wrong way to set up decoys, but as you go through your waterfowl hunting career, you will find setups that you like more than others. The best thing to consider while you are setting up decoys is to leave a hole or a landing zone for those birds to come in, feet down, and land. And while you are throwing out decoys, try to consider what the bird sees. So depending if you're in a small creek or the East Coast Sound, there are different scenarios where you might want your decoys close together, or you might want them spread out. You might want very detailed decoys, or you may go the late season route of a solid black and a solid white decoy. And so to preface or pick up on the equipment needs is, waterfowlers make it look like you need thousands and thousands of dollars to get into waterfowl hunting. And in reality, that's not true. You can have an 870 shotgun. You do not need that $2,000 Benelli SB3. You can have Facebook decoys, repainted rigs, used gear and equipment. And so depending what your budget is, you can find something that works for you to still get the gear that you need in order to be successful. Whether that's a gator tail duck boat or a gun slinging decoy backpack walking into public lands. Now, once you have harvested birds over your decoys, most waterfowl hunters do have a dog, typically labs, but other common breeds are poodles, Chesapeake Bay retrievers, pointers, even depending on if yours likes water. But when you have a dog, same as a person going out to retrieve birds, do not shoot when somebody is in the water. Don't take that chance. Always consider safety first. One extra bird isn't worth somebody's dog being shot. So always keep that in mind. Now, your dog can generally retrieve birds faster than you, but depending in your area, if you are in the swamps of Florida, you might not want to have a dog because of the gators around. So be mindful of your hunting locations and if having a dog is best for you or not. And so we're gonna breeze through this one, the with or without a dog. I think we've covered that one pretty well. And if anyone has any questions afterwards, you all just let me know. And so one of the things that Delta Waterfowl teaches, particularly with our university hunting program, is our fourth pillar, which is post hunt. Post hunt can be just as fun, just as enjoyable as the pre-hunt and the hunt itself, because then it's, well, what do I do now? I have birds down, birds at home. What are my next steps? And so when it comes to the preparation of your waterfowl, you will likely need game shears, a knife, fresh water, Ziploc bags, and a place to work. So that way you can either field dress your bird or breast out your bird completely, depending on your location. So until you get to your final spot of residence, you are required to keep at least one wing on the bird, so that way if you were to be pulled over, somebody can identify what species and also male or female that you shot during that day, so that way they can verify that you're not over limit on any one particular species. Now, if you are at home, you can breast that bird out completely, or pluck it for a roast, whatever you would like to do. But popular cooking styles cooking styles are going to be poppers, grilling, fajitas, pastrami, sausage, jerky, a roast, steaks. That ducks have an endless possibility and also get a bad rap. Most people think ducks are livery, leathery, nasty, muddy things to eat, right? That is the common misconception. Now, your divers are going to take a little bit more care because they are eating more animal matter compared to your puddle ducks that are generally eating seeds. So depending on the species, there is a difference in taste. But if you take away one thing from this cooking slide, it is do not overcook your waterfowl. It is okay and preferred to have it medium to medium rare. Once you overcook it, then the whole flavor profile changes to that livery, leathery, very hard to consume texture and taste. So do not overcook, and don't be afraid to leave your waterfowl medium to medium rare. And so with that, thank y'all for having me, and Deep, I guess we'll open it up to questions.
We absolutely will. And thank you so much, Aiden. A lot of good information, a lot of opportunity, well, as I said, from the college professor to look into. And one of the things I will say right off the bat, as with deer, typically when we're doing the deer hunting and deer processing, I'll typically bundle them and send them to both people, even if, say, like one group attended the deer hunting and they didn't send the waterfowl hunting. And they didn't attend the processing. So what I'll do is, once I do get the recordings, I'll make sure that folks that attend each event, whether it be Delta Waterfowl or Ducks Unlimited, that they get both videos. That way they have a lot more of information. So at this point, I'm not seeing any questions. Of course, I'm going to pull that up there. Let me get that to come down again. There you go. I'll get it set up here. And I will say, obviously, if there's none, a couple of things I want to say. And of course, I will take any comments from the panelists. We always have closing remarks. Already said about the webinars, definitely give you more. Do keep in mind we have that bear webinar coming up on Tuesday. And then I think that's my last webinar. We often say success, and looking back in my journals, I've been journaling for 30 years. For those of you that have already heard me say that, you're probably tired of hearing it. It's over 30 years now, but I oftentimes early in the years, and I'm talking probably started in the 90s, early 90s, I said, success. Yeah, I had success today, deer, finally success. Well, keep in mind, we use that term commonly, but as you get more candles on your cake, you're going to realize that success is far more than just harvest alone. The time outdoors right now, there's times when I'm in the woods, I will actually let wildlife go because it's too early to leave. So again, that comes with time. And before I make the final comment, since we have a question, and I'm not a waterfowl hunter, so this will be yours, Aiden, and I will read it because that's what I do. I'm the question narrator. How difficult is it to retrieve ducks hunted without a dog? Aiden, take it away.
Yeah, so keep in mind that this is going to be very dependent on your hunt location. That being said, the majority of your hunts are probably going to be ankle to waist deep at the deepest. And so with a pair of waders, you can normally very easily just walk out into the field or wetland or the flat system to retrieve your birds. Now if they are crippled, not a dispatched bird yet, I would recommend taking taking a pocket of extra shells with you, so that way you can dispatch that bird as quickly as possible. Plus, it'll probably save you quite a bit of walking. But most of your duck hunting is going to be in waist deep or less water. If you are in the deep lakes or the sound or coast, where you would primarily be hunting sea ducks and larger divers, most of those folks run a small tender boat, so that way they can pick them up with a tip net. But retrieving birds, it is going to be fairly easy. If you are a dog person, it is just very rewarding to watch your dog or even someone else's, do what they love to do.
Okay, great information. Not seeing, yeah, unlike, well, thinking in terms of small game, when I hunted rabbits and pheasants growing up, it's different in a terrestrial environment because we never had dogs. But yeah, when it comes to water, a little bit different dynamic. But yeah, being sure where they fall too. How about it, Aiden?
Yes. When you do drop a bird, try to mark it in your brain as best as you can, and go as straight in that point from A to B as you can. Because if there is brush or grass around, and particularly if the duck is crippled and didn't fall dead, they are masters of camouflage. You would be amazed how close that you can step to ducks and they not move.
Yeah, and that's good advice. What you said, keep the eyes on it, because it's very easy. And I heard that the other night in our other waterfowl webinar. When that goes down, you stay on it and head towards it, because if you look to the side or look to the left or you check something out, that's how easily you can lose it. So yeah, great point. So yeah, I'll throw in some final comments here if nobody else comes up, and then we'll leave it for any final comments for you folks. So I always say, be safe, be ethical. Always important when you're out there, especially when you're in the public eye, because you never know where people are going to be. And as we always say, pay it forward. One of the things that this program relies on, I've always been a one-man band. And so without my dedicated volunteer partners, we would not hardly have a program, especially when it comes to waterfowl, because I'm not a hunter. I'm a biologist. I can tell you biology related things, but it is important to have that group. And of course, one person talking forever, people can get bored with it. And so that comes in, whether it be instructors, instructor assistants, logistics assistants. So it isn't even like you need experience. And we're also always looking for venues. So for you folks in North Carolina that, know of maybe a hunt club or something that could host a Learn to Hunt event, please let us know. Any final comments from my panelists, I guess, starting with you, Aiden, and then we'll see if Sydney has any final comments. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, once again, thank y'all for having me. And for y'all's particular region, just to give y'all a bit of information, Ryan DePietro, he is our R3 coordinator, lives in, I guess, northern Alabama, but does cover North Carolina as well. And so if you are interested in becoming a waterfowl hunter, please reach out to either myself, Ryan, or you can also go online to Delta Waterfowl to find to find a Delta waterfowl chapter close to you, and a lot of the time they are also able to provide mentorship, so that way you can start your waterfowl hunting career.
Okay, and Aiden, am I hearing, I'm getting a little older, but I tend to be a little bit sharp. Am I hearing that maybe I could share both your and Ryan's email with the constituents when I send out the survey, or would you prefer them check the website?
Uh, 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 yes, yes, you are more than welcome to include both of our emails on there.
Okay, great. Sydney, any final comments relative to Learn the Hunt or anything?
Not much, Deet, other than if anyone is interested in public hunting opportunities, if you go to our website at ncwildlife.gov, if you go under a hunting tab, where to hunt and shoot, we have our game lands map up there, and it'll tell you where in certain areas you can find different species to hunt in different areas, and that'll give you a good idea on where to get started. And that's gonna be
Absolutely.
it for me.
Absolutely. Great advice. Whenever I travel, whether it's here in this state or in other states, I would always look at the website first and always have a copy of the Regs Digest. And for you folks that don't have a copy, you should be able to get it at your issuing agent where you got your license. And if you can't get it there, if they run out of them, as they sometimes do, go on our website and call the call center under like contact us or reach out to us, and they will mail you one. With that, and I don't see any questions, I am going to close it for tonight. Again, I wish you all a safe fall, a productive fall, and enjoy the outdoors. It's not just about taking the game, even though that's what we're out there for. That's our intent. Enjoy the whole thing, kind of like the forest for the trees. So with that, I thank my panelists again tonight. Thank you so much for being here. Good luck to you all. And again, I will get those recordings out along with the survey and share the other webinar with you as well. So thanks, everybody. Have a great night.